Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason,
I'm Bill.
and you got a sport marketing minute to start the day, right? Sport business.
I do. I got a couple things. One, Top Golf.
Top golf.
We've seen Top Golf here in Tampa, and I know they've just expanded in Charlotte. They've expanded one in Charlotte. Now they got over 30 locations. They're going to have possibly two in Charlotte, and it's just blowing up. And what I like about it is that it takes golf, which is very intimidating and very difficult to pick up, and it puts it in a fun kind of a situation. So I know the PGA Tour is working with Top Golf on a pop-up golf tour, and pretty soon you're going to see things like 5 holes of golf. I mean, 5-hole golf and then a social event. And Top Golf is kind of taking the fear out of golf and making kind of fun out of it and putting it in a social environment. I think it's a real timely idea that we might see different variations for other activities and other sports as we go. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do in a shorter amount of time if you can make it more fun and make it more social with the age groups that we have going on. So I'm really bullish on Top Golf right now.
So Top Golf, you don't even need your own equipment, right? They have equipment there for you,
Yeah, they got everything there.
and it's pretty reasonably priced, I believe, right? Or
It is, and well, it's expensive, but you're going there for a social thing. You're not doing it that often. And when they had the college football championship here, it was like a 3 to 4 hour wait, and people still wanted to wait to do it. So that tells me there's something there.
yeah, I would say that's clearly there.
But very, very impressed with that, how that's gone.
All right, you said you got a
And
couple.
then the other thing I wanted to put a shout out to is, the last couple jersey patches of the NBA deals have really made sense to me. And the Milwaukee Bucks in the last 10 days have signed Harley Davidson, which is based in Milwaukee. And I think that's another really good fit for the jersey. And makes sense because you're promoting more than the sponsor, you're promoting the city. And as long as the city has a tie-in to the jersey patch, it makes a lot of sense.
And I would think for the people that are sort of opposed to it's inevitable, and the jersey sponsorship is going to happen. It's happening already. I know there's people
Oh,
who are
it's
fighting.
inevitable. It's some point in time, it's going to be not a patch. It's going to be the jersey, like it is in the EPL.
Right, just like the EPL. But I mean,
we're not ready for that yet.
no, but like you said, I think if it ties into Milwaukee's the home of Harley Davidson, so now it's like it's part of the city on the patch, so it's less than like if it's just Google or the Silicon Valley or some other city's export on your jersey. It's part of your team, part of your city on your city team's jersey. So that makes a lot more sense. I think it's more palatable as well.
For sure. And whatever league jumps in next, whether it's the NHL or MLB or probably not the NFL, but one of those leagues,
Mm-hmm.
they might go straight to the jersey front. And if they do, then the NBA will be forced to join them, and then it'll become widespread.
Wow. It's hard
But
to
that's
imagine a
something I
hockey
see
sweater
that
with a
going.
giant, PNC logo on it or something.
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen. And like I said, it's been happening in soccer, and it's the future. But it's weird to think of sometimes.
All right. Can I jump into Little League?
You want to go Little League? Yeah, let's go Little League.
Yeah, let me go Little League first, since you just finished. So Japan trounced the U.S. Your score was 14-2 or 14-2, I think, I believe. And Texas hit a home run the very first pitch of the game, and that was all downhill. So it makes 5 out of the last 6 Little League World Series champions, 4 from Japan, 1 from Korea, 1 from Maine. And it's getting to a point where, the Little League World Series isn't the pastime anymore. We are getting so consumed by other things that other countries with a commitment to baseball and really wanting to be excellent in baseball are passing us by. We're not fundamentally sound, and we seriously got our ass kicked. It was brutal to watch.
Do you think some of the Major League involvement this year with I know we saw the Pirates that were at the Little League Series.
I thought that was fantastic.
Do you think that's an attempt to try and attract more younger people towards baseball again?
I think it is, and I think it will. And this Lufkin team, Texas didn't even have a Little League 6 years ago. So there's a real commitment there to get behind it. And there's a team from South Dakota that made it to the World Series this year in only their first year. Now, to me, those are great stories. But you know what else it tells me? Maybe there's not as many Little League teams as there were years ago.
I was also wondering, you talk about I've seen parents too where, I mean, by the time the kid is 6 or 7 years old, they're deciding what sport they're going to commit to if they're a good
Yeah.
athlete, whether it's basketball or soccer or something else. So I feel like, maybe 20 years ago we also had, kids that also loved, great football players and soccer players, and maybe some of those kids aren't going all in on Little League because they don't want to commit the time to take away from their other sport, which
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of. I still think you should just play as many sports as possible until you really need to make a choice. There's plenty of examples of guys that have been completely successful doing it that way, but I just with AAU basketball and like now the basketball kids don't want to play baseball too. So I mean, I feel like do we
They didn't
lose?
even want to play for their high school anymore
Right.
because the AAU coach doesn't want to play for the high school.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
And parents think,
Right.
well, my kid's a tennis star. My kid's only going to do tennis from now on. So
Yeah. I'm very disappointed. And I would sit here and tell you that if the teams were seeded, I mean, if they were seeded, I'm not so sure the Americans would have been in the finals. It might have been Japan and Mexico in the finals.
wow.
Instead of the finals of their bracket, it might have been the finals of the whole thing. So we need to better commit to this or prepare to get past that, like we did in the automotive world and some other worlds we've been in. So
It's true.
the American way is not the only way, and right now it's not even the best way.
Not in that sport, no.
Nope.
Technically, the Americans won last night in the big boxing match.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't there a boxing match last night?
There was. I was trying to think of the last big boxing match that got this sort. I mean, and this was sort of a circusy sort of fight. But I can't remember the last big boxing match that had real national attention. Like I know there's some Alvarez
Let alone
fights. and-
international attention.
Yeah, I know there's been some like lightweight fights and middleweight fights that have gotten people in the boxing community excited, but nothing like this where everybody is talking about said fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it was consuming. I mean, you had two really good showmen. And, you had two different styles because one was a boxer, one was MMA. So you had a lot of storylines. You had people fighting for their country, people fighting for their pride in their sport, and you also had a little racial thing going on. So you had a lot of reasons why this one was popular.
Right, and along those racial lines, one of Floyd's people, I'm not sure which one exactly, so I always feel bad when I'm quoting somebody or misquoting. This is actually close to the quote, but he was talking about sort of the racial stuff and that it's almost necessary nowadays. He was talking about, it ended up being a conversation where he talked about the reality TVization of sports, where people expect, what used to pass as like outrageous behavior is now tame. So in order to get all this extra heat, you have to go to that next level of hyperbole, even if it's just completely hyperbole, even if it's not even necessary. It just, the plan is now to talk to the point where it becomes like gossip, but it's got to be hotter than the last gossip. It can't be, you've got to, if this was a racial fight, the next one they're going to have to, drop even bigger racial hand. I mean, it's, and just sort of that's what gets people consuming it is this, like, it can't just be normal hype. Now it has to be over the top hype.
No, and I was actually downplaying the racial thing because that was more. But then after everything happened in Charlottesville and everything else, but he was the darling of the alt-right. There's no question.
Right. But it almost seemed like that was part of the plan. Like, I mean, maybe McGregor is everything he was talking about, but, but they went into it knowing that they had to push those buttons even before, long before Charlottesville, but they were pushing buttons that would keep it, as opposed to just, I'm going to kick your butt, you're going to kick my butt, that kind of stuff, or they had to take it to that next level so it garnered national attention. So it became, Twitter fodder and Facebook posts.
Right.
Because if it was just, two guys fighting, talking about how they were going to beat the other one up, the average person doesn't care as much. But when you bring in all these racial elements, now all of a sudden there's stories on Facebook and it's Twitter and it's, all blowing up every piece of social media. But that it's now part of the marketing is to be overly hyperbolic and overly controversial because that's what an audience expects now.
Yeah, there's a lot of money wagered on that fight, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the money was wagered.
Right. Now, I did not watch the fight live.
We know where the wise guys had their money.
Yeah.
I think I saw a stat at one time that 97% of all the number of bets were on McGregor, but that 88% of all the money was on Mayweather.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I said, I watched most of the fight today, not live, and it sort of felt like, I mean, it went the way people assumed the fight would go, and that Conor McGregor came out trying to knock him out. Floyd sort of, defensively fought. But it also sort of felt to me like sort of either a handshake agreement or something went down where they both sort of allowed the fight to go long enough that they both looked good. Because it looked like what Floyd did in that last round, he could have done at any point from a boxing standpoint. But, both guys had a lot of money on the line, a lot of reputation on the line. Boxing had a lot on the line. The UFC had a lot on the line. And even though Floyd got the win, Conor going 10 rounds with a champion boxer,
yep.
And it made everybody came out smelling clean. And like I said, as I watched it, I was a little suspicious that maybe there was some kind of, again, I don't want to be conspiracy
chasing. I
chasing.
think he acquitted himself well for a guy that could only do 50% of what he's capable of doing.
Certainly. But like I said, it felt like what Floyd did in that last round where he just destroyed him. He probably could have done that a lot earlier in the fight.
Conor McGregor's not fighting that long either.
Yeah.
And I think he was worn. I think he was worn out and punched out, just like Mayweather wanted him to be.
Yeah. Because I don't think McGregor got a single punch in the last round.
Well, I know a lot of us are speculating about a rematch, but Mayweather seemed to put that to rest today, saying he's done. Don't count. Don't call him. He's 50-0. He's retiring. He's done.
Well, he had 300 million reasons to fight this time. I'm sure you could,
See how long it takes to get through the 300 million. Maybe he's back at 43 like Rocky.
He potentially, sure.
Uh,
and somebody...
We were on race. Let's talk about Kaepernick.
Let's talk about Kaepernick. Whether or not the NFL wanted it to go away, it's a bigger movement now than when it was just Kaepernick.
Yep.
And,
I agree.
And I think what's nice is, you've seen, like the Browns, they had a large group of people out kneeling. I hate to say, I don't know if it was Chris Long, but you have, white players that are, putting their arms around, the African American players that are kneeling. And you have stars like Marshawn Lynch and, big name players that are doing it now.
Yeah, and players with a little bit more clout than Kaepernick had.
Right.
But is this more about Kaepernick's protest? Is this more about Kaepernick not having a job? What do you think they're protesting?
I think they're protesting legitimate social issues. I think not just Charlottesville, but I think it's hard not to watch the news. And there's one of these. There's a racially motivated event, or there's just it's every week, and that's just what we see on the news. Obviously, it depends on what you view the anthem as, and I know there's some people that are like, well, it's this and that, but we're a country about freedom, and the freedom to protest, and the freedom to say the kind of things you need to say, and I think kneeling during the anthem is a very peaceful way to bring some, recognition to your cause.
Until it becomes mundane.
Right.
It becomes the way. I saw the WNBA told their players they feel free to express themselves any way they want to express themselves.
Right. And I would assume the fear for everybody is that, it's sort of building all of its attention now, but if leagues start doing like the WNBA and they simply sort of ignore it, and the networks just sort of stop showing it and focus on...
That'll be the thing. Is the network going to start now the way it did before? They're not going to show the anthem. What are they going to do?
Well,
how they can handle it. It's just, if we let you see it or we don't let you see it, that's kind of part of all this.
Right. But, they can show, they can spend a little more time on the singer, show the crowd, show the flag, focus on the players who are standing, and, they can kind of wipe it out on that way if that's their goal.
Yeah. And who knows what the goal is? The one, I don't know if it's an unintended consequence, but the one result of all this is it's drawing a lot of attention to Kaepernick. And a lot of people have said he might not be the best quarterback or one of the top 30, but he's surely one of the top 60. And when you look at a couple teams like you and I were talking before offline, we talked about Jacksonville, we talked about the Jets. Are they really better than him?
No. And I think Jacksonville especially, like if you're the Jets, I think you're in a rebuild, and with Sam Donald and some of these other college quarterbacks coming out, you're probably fine to let Christian Hackenberg destroy your season, as long as you go 1-15 or whatever terrible record you end up with to get a high pick. But if you're Jacksonville, you've invested a lot of money in this team, and you've got talent on both sides of the ball, and the only thing holding you back is Blake Bortles. And the only one trying to take his job is Chad Henne. And if those are your two options, it's really set. I mean, because again, and you look at a guy like Fournette they have now, if you put him in the backfield, with Kaepernick who can run a little bit and at least, won't throw 40 interceptions during the course of the year, I mean, you're bound to be better.
So what's opening day, September 10th?
Isn't it the Thursday before September 10th? Do we open?
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so opening Thursday night. Is he on a roster or not?
I kind of think no.
Okay, let's go then. October 1st. Is he on a roster or not?
I think yes by then.
I think yes as well.
Because, we didn't mention them either, but you got a team like the Ravens, who the coach and the GM were on board with, and then the owner threw out the poll to the fans, and the fans rejected it, and they weren't happy about it. But they have Flacco out for a little while, and again, the Ravens aren't they're not in tank mode, and that's Ozzie Newsome, one of the best GMs in football, and Harbaugh, a great coach, that both evaluated Kaepernick as somebody that could help them. So somebody eventually. I think it's sad that probably the only thing that will come out of these protests is that maybe Kaepernick will get another shot. But you'd like to see some of the things that the players are actually talking about, and really some of those issues that, if those issues actually...
That's where I kind of think we are right now, is that the protest is now, part of it is about Kaepernick himself now.
Right. And it's almost kind of sad that he's sort of dominating the headlines, too, because I don't think he wants to dominate the headlines.
I don't think so either. Well, not for this reason.
No, I
agree with you.
He kneeled down for a reason, and that's why the other players are kneeling down as well, and that's the conversation he wants to be had. But it's sort of become a whole NFL player kneeling, not kneeling conversation, as opposed to let's talk about, racial inequality and gender inequality and all these other inequalities in this country, and is there a way we can improve those things? And like I said, I think if you watch the news, you can see that they're completely out of whack. They have been for a long time. And, they've gotten to the point where what else, you need to do different things to draw attention to it. And again, but it seems like...
No doubt.
This is what happens, though, is that, now that the narrative shifts, and now the narrative's about, Kaepernick being good or not good enough, and hopefully the conversation can swing back to what he intended to come.
Because originally it was about police violence, and violence toward African Americans by police. But nobody saw it that way. They all saw it as a protest against the flag.
Right.
So now it's kind of looking like it's a protest against Kaepernick not having a job, and the NFL owners blackballing and blacklisting him. So are we ever going to get back to the original issue? Or is the stage that we've chosen, or the platform they've chosen to use, does that prevent us from focusing on the issue? Is the anthem that big that it focuses, all the attention is always going to be based upon that and not the issue?
I think it's an excellent question, and I don't know if we have I think we're also a country that likes easy questions with easy answers. And the flag kneeling question, it can be a yes or, people can reduct that down to its simplest form of yes or no, where the other issues are, embedded in, a system, and it's changing laws and changing government and educate. It's so in depth that I think it scares people too. And they like to keep it as simple as possible. Like, let's just talk about flags and what a flag is. So.
Yeah. All right. So we're both on record as saying October 1st. We think he's on a roster by October 1st.
Yes.
Between opening day and October 1st.
I believe so.
I agree. I think it's exactly where it is.
So we can move on.
No ball moment this week, right?
No ball moment, but we had a huge NBA trade.
We did have a huge NBA trade.
And a bizarre one.
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
So we push this one on LeBron, we push this on Dan Gilbert, we push this one on Kyrie.
Well, I think LeBron and Dan Gilbert are always going to be at the center of it. Like, I mean, I think for good reason. LeBron is never going to get over what Dan Gilbert did on his way out of town. He was very disrespectful to LeBron. And I think if, he had been a little classier that entire time, then maybe LeBron's coming home to stay home. Maybe not. Like, LeBron obviously
But let's not forget about the decision, which was pretty disrespectful to Gilbert.
It was. I mean, LeBron is obviously,
both of them acted poorly. And so and it was, the emotions on both ends were so raw, it's hard to believe they could ever get married again.
I can't see it happening.
No, I mean, I think LeBron came back primarily because of it being his hometown. If it would have been his hometown, I don't think he comes back.
No, but he came back home. He's done some amazing things in Cleveland. He's paying for a lot of kids' college educations.
Amazing things.
He won.
Like we said, probably the most disrespected superstar I've ever seen.
Right. He did win a championship. He brought a championship to Cleveland.
He did.
And he's had them in the finals 3 straight years. And I mean, the team they're going up against is an absolute juggernaut. The likes of which we've rarely. I mean, you could argue they're one of the greatest teams of all time, talent-wise. Especially in this era with 3-and-D and everything else. I think Kyrie saw the writing on the wall that this is LeBron's show. He's going to come when he wants to come. He's going to leave when he wants to leave. And I don't think he wanted to be a part of that. I think he wanted to.
Or he wanted to get left behind.
He wanted to get left behind, and I think he wanted to have a little more say in sort of basketball decisions too.
Sure.
Because LeBron runs the show. I mean, it's supposedly he's the coach. He's the GM. He calls plays. And I think Kyrie also feels like he can do more offensively. I thought one of the most interesting things is you have the 2 teams that played for a chance to go to the finals making huge trades with each other.
Yeah, I thought that blew me away.
Which is almost unheralded.
I thought Kyrie would get traded. I did not think he'd get traded in the East. I think he'd be in the West.
Right, and if he was going to the East, I did not think it would be the Celtics.
No.
And I think this trade is interesting from so many reasons.
Who do you think is now the favorite in the East? Is Cleveland still the favorite in the East, or does it put Boston ahead?
I think as long as Cleveland has LeBron, Cleveland's the favorite. Because as we were talking earlier, Boston is only bringing back 4 players from the team that went to the championship game last year. Granted they've added Gordon Hayward, they've added Jason Tatum, and now they've added Kyrie Irving, which you assume is just upgrades across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But that team thrived on chemistry, and you had a 12-man team that's down to 4.
Right.
So you have a completely new nucleus, a new team. And although IT definitely took a lot of shots, I am interested to see how Kyrie fits into a Brad Stevens system. Like,
It's interesting. I want to see how this plays out. Obviously, it's going to take a while for Boston to become, a team with all these new parts.
Without a doubt. And they still, their weakness last year was rim protection. They still don't really have rim protection. They're still a very small team. I think with Hayward and Kyrie, they're obviously going to be more potent offensively, even without IT. And Tatum's a very good scorer too, but he's a rookie, so we'll see what he can do. But
what's interesting is since Cleveland's going to have to adjust to all new pieces as well.
Right.
So maybe this opens the door for Washington to get a good lead.
It's potential. I think though if IT, and now we've learned this week that Cleveland may want some more competition because of IT's hip.
Mm-hmm.
But if IT can come back and have another season, let's say 80% of last year, he kind of provides them a little bit of what Kyrie provided them. But in that trade, they also added Jay Crowder, who, is an excellent perimeter defender, and that's one of the things that killed Cleveland last year.
Right.
So I think if IT is close to what he was last year, and last year was a career year, it was phenomenal, and he's coming off a hip injury, so that might not be possible. But I think they could actually be better. But the other thing this trade...
This year with the new schedule, we're 6 weeks away from opening week in the NBA.
And we've been talking about the NBA since it ended.
I know. And 6 weeks from now, it'll be starting again.
And I think we talked about this a little before, but too, I listened to a podcast with Kevin Durant recently, and they asked him about the loyalty question in regards now to the IT question, because Isaiah Thomas embraced the city of Boston, played as hard as you could possibly play for a team. He played hurt, putting his career on the line with the hip injuries. He played after his sister died in the playoffs. He came right back the next day and played, and Boston traded him away because they thought they could do better. And, people talk about, when KD left, it's a loyalty thing, and I think this is a perfect example of how this really is just a business. And, you can't, there's no real loyalty on either side, and that's,
No, I know, and it's kind of sad because Isaiah Thomas was really proud to be part of that team, part of that city. And he was.
And like I said, when he played with a hip injury, it's a bad injury. He's put his career on the line for that team and that city. And,
no question.
And again, his family member
passed. But you know what, Jason? Did we hear any protests in Boston?
I think we heard gratitude towards Isaiah.
But why'd they burn his jersey?
I don't understand that at all.
I don't understand it at all either.
That's
it's
bizarre.
Not like he had a choice.
Yeah, I was like,
it's not like he left them.
No, I think that's just become a thing. But I was like, that guy gave his heart and soul to that city, and he was traded. He didn't ask to be traded, so to burn his jerseys is ridiculous. I've seen most of the sentiment has sort of been like, "Thank you so much, Isaiah. Good luck."
Yeah.
But it seems like the Celtic fans are pretty happy they're getting Kyrie Irving. And most of the negative comments is more they're afraid of the Brooklyn pick being something great. So, did they give up too much? But as we discussed earlier, I kind of feel like Brooklyn's going to be not a great team, probably still in the lottery, but maybe not a top 5 pick in a top-heavy draft. So maybe it's not as good a pick as people think it might be.
Yeah, hard to say. Hard to say how it works out.
And again, outside of Little League, I was just thinking lost in all of this has really been, baseball this summer. In a summer without the World Cup and without the Olympics, most of the press has been the NBA, McGregor Mayweather, and the NFL.
I think baseball's brightest moment was last Sunday night when the Pirates and Cardinals spent the day with the League World Series. And the Giancarlo Stanton hitting all these home runs he's hitting lately has kind of taken the spotlight away. He's hit 50 home runs.
Yeah.
And he's become a story again. And in the first part of the year was Judge and a couple other players, and Mike Trout's playing. Baseball's got great players.
They do. McCutchen, I know we go Pirate-centric.
You don't see them all the time. And that's the thing that hurts baseball. You can't count on seeing them every Sunday or whatever. I actually watched Mike Trout the other night when I was in St. Louis because it was only 2 hours later than 1 hour.
Right.
I saved 1 hour. So I stayed up and watched the first 3 or 4 innings of a Mike Trout game, and he didn't disappoint.
No, but with all that being said, and including, the Dodgers having a really historic season, baseball's been, it's been on the back burner of most people. Even, like I said, in the summer without the World Cup, without the Olympics, when it's been, the off season of 2 other sports and a fight that, was sort of a gimmick. And they dominated the headlines over baseball. So I don't,
Yeah.
Maybe that's just where
we
we're
had
at.
College football begin last night or yesterday.
Which is insane.
Yeah, it kind of was. It's Stanford and Rice go to Australia to play, and Rice loses by 55. So I don't know what the Aussies think about American football now. Probably less than they thought about it before. But Colorado State knock off Oregon State in their new stadium. And we had USF spot San Jose State a 16-0 lead at the end of the first quarter and then roll to a 42-22 win. And then, speaking on behalf of Neil Everett, Hawaii went all the way to UMass and won. So that sums up the first week. But some big games coming up. Alabama, Florida State next Saturday night. Big game.
That's an enormous game.
Massive game to start. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Chick-fil-A will be open for that game.
Was that Thursday?
It's a Saturday.
Oh, Saturday. Yeah, but that's a weird sponsorship too.
Well, I think we can talk about it. I think that they sponsored it because it's their hometown.
Right.
I mean, they're Atlanta people, and there's going to be other events in the Dome. They're just not going to be open that day. And if they're going to spend the money for sponsorship, and they want to show that they're a good Atlanta team and they're willing to walk away from that kind of revenue, it shows you how convicted they are to their beliefs that their employees should be spending the day with their families on Sunday.
It's very true. I'll give him that. The one thing I've always found kind of bummer about college football in general is that the preseason polls seem to hold too much weight at the end of the final. I mean, because Alabama's number one right now. For someone to come all the way
If
from
Alabama wins, they're entrenched further at number one, and Florida State will fall from number three, and they might not be able to get back where they were. I mean,
right,
I don't think you should have a poll until, let's say, October 1st or October 15th.
Certainly nothing official. I mean, you can't stop newspapers, but I mean, because if the best team in the country, happen to be number 19, it's so difficult for them to move. I mean, as long as a few of the teams that are already predetermined to be the best teams do well, they can never really move up.
No, there has to be too many things that happen. That's why this whole rating system, you need to let it go for a while. Just not rank anything for a while. And I know they don't release it, but there's 3 other polls that are releasing them. So the BCS isn't releasing ratings, but everybody else is, and that impacts the way the viewers view it.
Right. And I'm not saying that Alabama won't be the best football team like they almost are, or one of the best teams every year, but when you're given that number one ranking, you have a huge head. It's like you've got a huge lead on everybody else.
Sure you do.
Whether or not you earned it or not. And a lot of those things are based on past performance, which shouldn't have any impact on this season.
But it does. Because the Big Ten, every year for the last 10 years has not been that great. But they're ranked. They have a bunch of teams ranked every year.
Right. And then when you beat those ranked teams
in the top 10 right now.
Right.
Wisconsin, Penn State, and Ohio State.
And if Ohio State beats Wisconsin and Penn State, then they beat 2 top 10 teams, whether or not they were legitimately top 10 teams.
Exactly.
So it's sort of that weird self-fulfilling prophecy that sort of college football sort of puts itself on, which, again, I don't know what you can really do about it, but it's always been the one part of college football that's made it sort of difficult for me to get into. That and the fact that most of the schools I've gone to have not been, UMass being one of the schools I went to, so not great football programs.
Food moment.
Let's go food moment.
I'm going to talk about tomorrow night. I will be in Philadelphia going out with the Sixers sales team. We're going to go to Smokin' Betty's, which I've been to once before, and I am going to have the cheesesteak egg roll, which I thought was absolutely amazing when I was there last time. So I will take a picture of the cheesesteak egg roll. It will be on my at Sutton Impact U Twitter site tomorrow night.
That sounds delicious.
It was amazing. I'm not even going to order an entree. I'm going to order another order of the egg rolls. I'll order 2 appetizers.
They must be just amazing then.
They really are.
And I guess since it's only been about a food 30 seconds, there's a restaurant here in New Orleans called Boucherie, which is basically just the butcher in French, which is the high-end place. And right next door is Boré, where the chef decided that he loved chicken wings and French fries. So he opened up a gourmet chicken wing and French fry place right next door. It's fresh-cut beef fat fries, which are probably terrible for you, but they're absolutely incredible to eat. And the wings are all big, meaty, fresh wings. They're seasoned well. They're fried. They have a lot of different sauces. It's outstanding. I mean, if you're in New Orleans looking for wings, randomly.
If you're in New Orleans, you're always looking for food.
Always looking for food. And I went to a terrible vegan bakery that's right down the street from me today that I would never recommend anyone go to.
So it should be nameless.
I'll just leave it nameless. I don't want to call them out for being bad bakery.
So what do we look forward to for next week's show, Jay?
Next week's show, we got final cuts on the NFL. Let's see if anybody's moving around. Especially with some of these injuries we had with Edelman and Meredith, a couple of receivers that were pretty big time.
Yeah.
We'll see what else has happened with the Kyrie Irving trade. What else is the compensation for IT?
We'll see what the Kaepernick situation is. And we will talk about that Alabama-Florida State game.
And being Kaepernick, I hope I'm wrong. and he's long before, but way before October 1st, he's on a team. But
I hope so too. Let's see what happens. And you know what? All we're saying is give him a shot. I'm not saying he's the next big thing, because I don't think he is.
no.
But he's better than some guys that right now have a job. And if the only reason he's not getting a shot is because he protested, that's wrong. Give him a shot. If he can't play, he can't play. But he deserves a shot.
Yeah, and like I said, I think with everybody else kneeling down now, I think it hopefully takes enough pressure off an owner to just be like, all right, well, let's bring him in and see what he can do.
Yeah, hopefully so.
So that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Please go to iTunes and rate us and subscribe. It means a lot. And
we appreciate all the support. And please tell your friends about it and pass on the link. We'll talk to you next week.